Welcome and thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Today we're going to be talking about something very specific that I think you'll all very much enjoy. After all, since the 1930s, we started seeing medicine cabinets being put into our bathrooms. For what reason, you ask? Well, the obvious one, store your medicines. But if pharmaceuticals are so effective, how come people find themselves stringing one after another to relieve symptoms that perhaps the first one they were taking for an original symptom is just not working? Well, why don't we get to the root of the cause and see if we can get to where we can grow our own pharmacy, which is exactly what the title of the book today we're going to be talking about is. Grow Your Own Pharmacy. And our guest joining us today is Linda Gray. And Linda, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here.
You bet. Now, let's talk about growing your own pharmacy. This is quite unique because it can be a lot of fun and very interesting all at the same time.
Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, nature provides us with just about everything we could possibly need, so it's just a matter of sorting it out, really, and putting in the right vitamins.
Now, what should a person grow?
Well, the thing is, I would say grow what you like to eat. That's probably the best rule of thumb. But then again, everybody is different. You know, if you tend to get a lot of colds during the winter months or early spring, then grow foods with high quantities of vitamin C, because that will have a direct result on your body. Obviously, most fruits and vegetables are packed full of vitamins and minerals anyway, and are probably anything that you can fit into your garden is worth growing, as long as your family's going to eat it. I mean, there's not a lot of point in growing great beetroot if nobody in the house eats it, so go for something that you like in general.
Now, how much space does a person need to start growing their own pharmacy?
Well, I would say, anything from a pot, really. I mean, you can grow vegetables and fruits and herbs in containers and pots, and therefore you're not really limited with space. If you've got a balcony, a conservatory, anything, you can always grow something. Even a windowsill. I'm growing aloe vera on my windowsill at the moment. It's great stuff.
Now, let's talk about some of the, key component things people should be growing throughout their gardens.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. What
would be some key plants that people should be having in their gardens as far as, an average?
Well, I would say go for a mixture: leafy green vegetables, root vegetables, and obviously as many fruits as you can. Really, planning is probably crucial, especially when you're starting a garden, and if the garden hasn't been a vegetable patch previously. Planning out what you're going to grow each year. Crops need to be rotated. You shouldn't grow the same crop in the same place every year, for example. Any diseases that are within the soil will wreck your next year's crop. So changing your crops around, rotating the crops are always a good idea. Did I get to the end of that question then?
I believe you did, as a matter of fact, yeah, because, it's always interesting. People go, what kind of herbs should I grow? It could be rosemary and thyme according to song, and, taking a look at the different things that you should have, just on hand for probably a lot of different things.
Mm. Well, yes, I think, variety, really. And also, I'm going to stress again, what you like to eat, because there really is no point in growing a magnificent herb garden if you never really think about putting herbs in your food. Unless you just like the look of them, obviously. I mean, they are very attractive plants. But, practically, no, you need to grow what you are going to use.
Very, very good. Now, what is the best place because I know we've done many shows over gardening, and there's a lot of talk about genetically enhanced seeds where they grow the plant, but then you can't continue to reproduce. So how does a person find the right seeds, really good seeds, I guess?
Well, I mean, you could be very particular and go for heirloom seeds, the heritage heritage seeds, that kind of thing, or just choose a really good supplier. I mean, I've used a particular supplier for years, and they are great. You know, they always produce good seed. I mean, you can be very particular about these things, but I think, you know, if you're growing organically, then hey, you know, I think as long as the product that you buy is good in the first place, then, you know, you've got a good start, really.
Hmm. Now, where's a good place as our listeners are tuning in for them to start growing their pharmaceutical garden?
Well, where? Well, the thing is, if you're starting from seed, well, at this time of year in the UK anyway, you need to be keeping them warm. So definitely not directly outside in general. I mean, there are lots of things that you can start off early in the garden, you know, garlic, shallots, onions, that sort of thing. Oh, and some garden peas. They can be put out directly when the weather isn't quite as warm as it could be. But most seeds in general, I would say that they need to be kept warm. So on a sunny windowsill, greenhouse, conservatory, you know, and start them off in well-drained trays or pots. Make sure it's well-drained is really crucial. Nothing likes waterlogging. Even plants like watercress won't survive in stagnant water. The soil needs to be well-drained. And use a good compost when you start them off, rather than just soil from the garden, because that will have weed seeds in it and probably various bugs and things that you don't really want. So it's a good idea to start off your seeds indoors, unless you live in a particularly warm climate, obviously, then, you know, directly outside. But normally when you buy seeds, I mean, it will give you general growing recommendations on the packet. And it's always a good idea to check them because, you know, every area is different. Every variety of vegetable or fruit is different as well. And they will have different requirements. So that's a good double check, you know, always check on the seed packet as well.
Well, what's really interesting is that, like I said, as we've done different shows on gardening, is that it's about how you can use your space depending on how the sun is, how the shade is, and what plants ideally grow in certain areas. Could you discuss some of that with our listening audience?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, always check on the seed packet. I would, you know, stress that. Again, always check. But, I mean, most plants like a sunny spot in the garden. But having said that, there are lots of salad ingredients, for example, radishes, lettuce, that will run to seed very quickly if they are in hot sunshine for too long during the day. So partial shade is suitable. Again, each plants really do have their own specific requirements. But generally go for a sunny spot, as sunny as possible. If it does get too bright, then they can always be shaded. You can rig up kind of like you know, a parasol for your plants. Just to give them a bit of cover from the midday sun, perhaps. We don't usually have that trouble in the UK. We don't very often get long, hot summers. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all very possible. But I think, yeah, go for a sunny spot generally, though. For most plants like to grow in the sun. Unless you're growing mint, and then you can fill up a nice shady patch in the garden with it. Although keep it under control because it will probably take over.
Now, it's interesting in your book because you cover different plants that we should be growing for different things, such as vitamin B, vitamin B12, niacin, and the like. It's really important for people to understand, too, that you can go and you can supplement your diet, I suppose, by popping pills, if you will, but it's really more important if you can get it from its source. Could you explain why that's important?
Well, basically, I have to say that I'm all for nature, and I do believe that nature provides everything we need. I lived off the land with my family and fed 6 of us with natural ingredients for, well, over a decade. And none of us ever needed vitamin supplements or antibiotics. We were all very well and healthy. The occasional cough and cold, but nothing serious, you know, a couple of days here and there. And this is with a growing family, so, I know it works. I think it's just a question of getting. I think we kind of everything is out of a bottle or a packet these days.
Right.
We live with processed food so much that I don't think we do get the vitamins we need from them, and therefore we do need to take vitamin supplements. Whereas if you kind of, I don't know, just leave out the processed food a bit and fill up with stuff that you're growing yourself, I think, the vitamin supplements really will be a thing of the past. These companies are going to hate me for saying this, but, I just, I think it's almost a waste of money. The money is better spent on growing your own food. And also, of course, it gets you in touch with outside, fresh air, a bit of exercise. You don't have to go mad, but, a bit of exercise here and there can't hurt. So I'm rambling, aren't I?
No, I think it's neat because the thing is that as people take a look at this, first they want to approach it from, well, it's just logical to go ahead and do this. But there's also a tremendous romantic side to doing something like this. And again, you're creating or you're becoming a co-creator by, birthing this plant, nurturing it, and then here this plant begins to respond to you by just giving 10 and 20 and 100-fold. And it's just quite amazing, versus, I'm down to the end of my bottle, toss, back to the vitamin store to get another one, and you're so removed from it that you don't have that connection like you're talking about.
And the thing is, it doesn't take much to get that connection. I think when you start, even if you just grow a few pots of herbs on the windowsill, it kind of gets you into it, and it's so much more rewarding to be able to pick a few herbs and throw them in your food than just going down the supermarket and buying them in packets. I mean, I'm all for keeping out of the supermarket as well, as much as possible anyway.
There was an interesting series that we've been interviewing the translator on, which is Anastasia. And in the very first book of 9 books of the Ringing Cedar series, she talks about how you set up plants as medicines and as nutrition. And one of the things she talks about is that you actually go out to the area where you have the plants and you wash yourself, your feet, and your hands off just with plain water, no soap, into where the plants are, and that the plants actually, through their intelligence, begin to adjust themselves so that they can become that natural medicine as we're talking about.
Wow, that sounds great.
Yeah, and when you think about that, just think about that. It just kind of makes sense in a unique way because the plant then begins to pick up your cellular memories and the like and says, okay, this is what I need to do to adjust to this person so that I can become effective, as though it's surrendering itself.
Oh, I'm going to have to read that. That sounds great. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's natural antibiotics in the soil as well. So just simply, the touch of your skin with the soil helps. It helps our immune system. Just from our point of view, rather than the plant's point of view. It will help. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of things at the moment about grounding as well. Like we're charged with positive electrons. If we get in touch with the soil, with the ground, it kind of neutralizes all that. It gets us back to that de-stress mode that many of us have forgotten about. We rush around all over the place being anxious and stressed, and sometimes all it takes is half an hour walking around outside in the garden. Just let all that go, and it makes you feel better.
Well, the other thing that's interesting, too, about gardens, I know my wife herself has a father that really loves gardening, and he's from the Philippines, and we went to visit him and her mother in Chicago. They live just right outside of Chicago, and it was interesting because all the houses pretty much all looked the same. They were the small little brick houses, had the same front yards except for his. His were rich in some of the most, what would I call it, healthiest kale I'd ever seen. That was his front yard. And then you go to the backyard, and he's got beans, he's got herbs, he's got just about everything you can think of. And then he was also had animal traps set up, so, the next morning you'd catch squirrels, and he'd release them off to a park somewhere, even a skunk one time. And you think of how much life this guy was attracting to his yard, while everybody else's yard looked like everybody else's.
Yeah. They look like cardboard cutouts, really, when you look at a street with a front lawn, having vegetables growing in your front garden is just wonderful. I mean, the thing is also you can get around the visual effect as well by, if you don't particularly want to grow, potatoes or beans in your front garden, you can grow attractive herbs. You can grow edible flowers, for goodness sake. This is all possible. I think a lot of the times when people are thinking about gardening, they tend to think, gardening means lots of digging, backache, and you don't get much for what you put in. But that is so wrong. There is so much enjoyment in it, in the whole thing, as long as you don't take it. I think you have to take it seriously, but not too seriously.
Right.
We have to accept that sometimes nature is really mean and will wipe out a crop without us even, blinking overnight. It can be gone. But having said that, if you do all the right things, hopefully it works.
I know, as her dad would say, sure, those roses look pretty, but you can't eat them. And so he was into having an edible garden, but it's quite fantastic just how beautiful even an edible garden looks.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. I'd like to see a picture of that.
Now, how long have you been gardening like this and growing your own pharmacy, if you will?
Well, I lived in London. I was a real townie until my mid-30s, and we went off travelling and landed up buying a place in France with an acre of land, which we renovated and created a garden. And then from that moment on, really, I was addicted. I couldn't understand how I'd never been interested in it before, really.
Probably because you thought it was a lot of work like a lot of other people.
Probably, yeah. And also, anyway, I had 4 children, so fitting it in between, and living in London wasn't necessarily an easy thing. But hey, now I know better, and I would urge anybody to have a go at it, even if they do live in town, because you can, But yeah, I mean, that was really what turned me onto it, and I spent most of the rest of my children's growing up years doing just that, growing vegetables, feeding them from the land. And as I say, they were all very healthy and fit. And actually, they're all grown up now. I mean, I've got grandchildren, but they all have a very healthy attitude towards food, which is very reassuring in these days, to be honest.
Especially when it comes to youngsters.
Yes, exactly. With all the eating disorders and everything, I think, just get back to nature a bit, and kind of all goes out the window, really. All that, Makes you know what you're eating, and it's so easy. I mean, obviously, it's so easy to fill up with processed foods, and it's quick. But long term, it isn't quick, and it isn't easy because your body just doesn't. We're not equipped for it, really. We don't have 50 years of research behind processed foods that we can guarantee are okay for us. I mean, I'm just as guilty as the next person. I will buy processed food occasionally if I have to, or if I'm in a rush. But, generally, I think as much as you can, if you can grow, some food, it's just better for you all round, really. Mind, body, and soul. What more can I say?
Well, it's interesting, too. There's a guest that we've had on our program that works out of the United States, out of Arizona. And what he does is he helps people reverse diabetes naturally. And he's got a tremendous success rate. And the whole philosophy that he goes with is raw, natural foods in the natural state that you find them. Of course, mostly plant-based. But he's taking type 2 diabetics, turning them around to where they don't have it anymore. And in some cases, not a whole lot, but in some cases, even type 1. And you realize, well, if that's all that it takes, then how come people are moving the other direction? And I remember there was a question I had asked, for instance, several years ago, why are we seeing 1 out of 3 people becoming diabetic here in America? And one of the consistent answers was cornstarch. Was the fact that we had so much corn syrup and cornstarch in our foods. And I thought, oh my goodness, what are we doing to ourselves? But it's because people demand the food, and so they feel they have to grow and manufacture and have more of these industrial agricultural farms. But it's starting to change in waves, and it's really beautiful because when you start growing, your own garden, or in your case, growing your own pharmacy, you realize just how much you can produce in such a small space that's really healthy.
Definitely. I think we have a similar problem in the UK with the diabetic thing. I personally did an experiment on myself for a month and didn't have any processed sugar in my diet. And I lost a good few pounds that I needed to lose. And I was really surprised at the difference, how I felt. I felt much kind of, that clean feeling inside when you've just drunk a glass of water or you do a detox or something. It was just amazing not putting in that processed food. Sugar, processed flours, they all have a very similar effect on the body, on the insulin levels, which, of course, cause diabetic conditions. Again, getting away from processed foods can really help that. I'm terrible. If I'm in a doctor's surgery and I hear people going on about, I wonder why there's so many diabetics, I have to open my mouth, just leave out the processed sugar, just try it. Just try it. It's,
finding things in their natural raw state as possible. And pretty soon now you got pets that are becoming diabetics because we're feeding them processed food.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
You just look at somebody, and this is reasonable to you?
Oh, dear. Yeah, the thing is, we know so much now. We live in this amazing age where we have all the information at our fingertips.
Right.
But maybe we're just, some of the time, going for the wrong information. I don't know. I don't know. But it is out there, and we can do a turnaround. I think they say that 90% of problems of medical conditions can be solved by a change in the diet. Well, I can really heartily agree with that. I think. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist, but hey,
Well, that's the funny thing too, is that we get so caught up in science proving results. When science is nothing more than a process where you follow certain steps to have the same result. But we've known through history that even that can't be consistent. So why do we plug so much faith into science rather than just using common sense?
Well, exactly. Yeah. I think if you get, also the thing is, if you get in touch with the earth, you tend to be feeling much more natural and more commonsensical, if you like. They do say there's nothing common about sense, don't they? So, hey, let's get our clever hats on and get out there in the garden, really.
Just be quiet and listen. Now, in your book, you also not only share with people how to set up the right conditions, good soil, good seeds, how you take care of, nurture plants from being babies into nice adults, but you also share or have recipes in your book. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, thing is, I found that when I was in France and we were, building our organic garden and everything, we tend to get a glut of tomatoes, say, one year, for example. What do you do with them all? You get limited freezer space, and anyway, it's nicer to kind of, have it.
Geez, so much for not being able to grow enough food, right?
Well, so at the end of the day, I had to sort of start doing things with them and make them a bit more interesting because, fresh vegetables are great. I could eat the same thing every day if it was a nice, healthy plate full of, fresh food. But, children are different and they get bored quickly. So I kind of started spicing things up and making things slightly different. And I thought, well, it's all very well growing all this stuff, but you have got to know what to do with it. So I put that in the book as well. In any case, I've got a terrible memory. So, one of the main reasons for me starting this book was to put all the information I wanted in one place, because I never remember things like, the B6 content of this, that, and the other. And I want to know. So I figured, if I've got it in a book, then I can refer to it. And I know my kids actually still use the book for various recipes and things. So yeah, they're just plain simple things. They're nothing special, no cordon bleu stuff.
I think what's fascinating, too, as you read through the different recipes, you begin to realize that as you combine different things together, the richness that you're actually adding to your diet from every way, shape, and form, you think to yourself, why would I ever really need to, have to take any kind of pharmaceutical ever again?
Oh, no, no. I mean, I don't take them. I'm not saying that, they don't have their place. Of course they do. But I think we should consider them to be almost the last resort. If you've been poorly for a while, or you're recovering from a long-term illness, okay, you might need a little extra boost. But generally, everyday stuff, no, I don't like the idea of popping pills. I'm useless. I hate popping pills anyway. If a doctor says to me I have to take some pills for a few weeks, I will do anything rather than take them. I just forget. I just don't, oh yeah, okay, I should have taken my pill this morning. Oh, I better take it now, that kind of thing. But yeah, no, I think, the further we can get away from pills and processed stuff, the better, really. We are natural, beings. Let's face it, we've got along for millions of years without these processed foods and stuff. And we don't have to go out there and hunt, our food anymore.
I know, too, as you were talking about your tomato dilemma just not more than a minute or so ago, is that in this book, folks, there are 4 different types of tomato recipes, so there's no end to what you can do with a tomato.
Oh, God, yeah. I could probably write a book about tomato recipes.
Oh, fantastic stuff. The book is Grow Your Own Pharmacy. Our guest today, Linda Gray. Now, Linda, is there a website people can find out more about your work?
Yes. My website is flowerandgardentips.com. It has a hyphen between each word.
Well, very good. Well, Linda Gray, thank you for joining us here on the program. It's been a pleasure.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you very much.
Say hi to the neighbors of the United Kingdom for me.
I will.
Will do.
Good.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for tuning in. Again, the book is Grow Your Own Pharmacy. We don't say pharmaceutical companies are bad. We just say, how would you like to feel good? I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to visit us on our website at beyond50radio.com. That's the number 50. Sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter, and also be sure to visit us at our blog, where you can find out about all of our shows that we have archived, so you can listen to it at your convenience, download, or even send them to friends, including today's show as well. We thank you for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. Remember, live your day past halfway.